Before I formally introduce Mel, I've got just a little 1-minute civics lesson. And there's some things I didn't know, and I got one on the internet and researched yesterday. There's 33 state senate districts in the state. And you run those numbers, roughly each district's got about 150,000 population. The district, the 31st district that Mel's a candidate to be senator for, is, I was going to describe it, I'm going to pass this around because it basically goes over to Eau Claire, but doesn't include Menominee or River Falls, and then down 94 to Jackson County, and then over and up the river. So, you know, it's going to be putting a few miles on the car. I know that. The other thing about just a couple other stuff, I'll pass this around. And then,
it's the shaded green area.
Shaded green, District 31, it's most of the map there. And of the 33 state senators, as of today, 18 are Republican, 15 are Democrat. Each state senator makes, gets an annual salary of $50,950, plus they get some living expenses when they are in Madison and in session. And it's a 4-year term, but it's a staggered 4-year term, so half the, it's not quite, I don't know how, it's 33, I don't know which is half, but half of the Senate's elected every 4 years. So get elected, it won't be that 4 years.
It'll be a 4-year term.
Yeah. Just a couple things about Mel. He's a dairy farmer over near Plum City, is that right? About 75 head of cow, and been doing it 240 acres, and been doing it 42 years. Also is on the your vice chairman of the Hastings Co-op Creamery. And when is it? Later this month? They're
in 2 weeks.
2 weeks they're going to be having.
Hastings Creamery will have their a membership meeting here at the next event center. So if you folks are here, I'll probably be here too.
It's on a Thursday, right? Okay, so that will be interesting. And you served in politics. You served 14 years on the county board. And I did just tell them, this is the first time that I can remember that we've ever had candidates for political office coming a few days before the election. And it's an experiment. I wanted to keep this very proactive. We want to hear what Mel's going to be doing, not how bad, the bad things the opponent's going to be doing. So that's the kind of culture I'd like to show, and I think that's missing in a lot of politics today too. But it's all yours, Mel.
Thank you very much, friends, and thank you to everyone here that's here to listen. My name is Mel Pittman. I'm married. I have 3 children and 2 grandchildren. And Rick, my oldest daughter, is a school teacher. Her first teaching assignment was at Malone School over in Prescott, so that was before you came here, obviously. But we operate a 75-cow dairy operation. One of our strong points that we do with our dairy operation is we try to produce the highest quality milk that we can. So in 2017, our field rep at Hastings Creamery over here nominated us in a nationwide milk quality awards program. And we were one of 46 across the United States that was recognized for producing superior quality milk. And we do that for 2 reasons. One, our goal is always to provide the best quality product we can for consumers. But the other part of it is we get paid extra money, extra dollars for that high quality milk. And we would average about $1 a hundredweight more money than the average dairy producer out there. Well, in today's The dairy economy, things have been really tight for the last 3 years. That $1 hundredweight, if you're getting $14 for your base milk price, that $1 hundredweight can help pay a lot of bills. And that could be the difference between being a successful dairy farmer and one that's not making it, not cutting the mustard. So, and I mention that to you because I've tried to do that with everything I've done in my life and career. I've tried to do the best job possible, try to figure out the ways to be the most efficient, because I know as we continue forward in our country as a whole, that if you're just ordinary and average, chances are you're going to have a tough time succeeding. You have to be above average. You have to do the best job you can in order to succeed. So we run a cropping operation with our dairy cattle. We've done that for over 40 years. Right now, for the past 3 years, I've had a hired man and his young family that help us on the dairy farm. We've allowed them in the past year to start building equity. He has a sincere desire to dairy, to milk cows, you know, take care of the livestock and whatnot. And so we're offering them an opportunity, and it's working. At this point, it's working out well. Our 3 children decided farming wasn't in their interest, and we said that was okay. We wanted them to be happy with the choice of career that they chose. So our oldest daughter is a school teacher. She's an elementary ed special education major, and she did special ed over here in Prescott at Malone School for a number of years. Her husband got a job over in Eau Claire, Chippewa Falls, and so she taught school over in Cadott, and then she was back to Red Wing, and now she's over in Prior Lake. So they do get around, I guess is a good way to put it. But they have 2 of our grandchildren, a granddaughter and grandson. And our second daughter is a medical professional. She does sonography. She lived over in Burnsville, works for Fairview Clinics. And our son surprised his mom and dad. He, after he went through 1 year of schooling for auto mechanics at CVTC, he came home and he says, "Mom, Dad, I want to join the Marines." And that was quite a surprise. We weren't expecting to hear that. But we said, we'll support you. If that's something you want to do, we think that's important. That is an important career choice. So he did 6 years active duty in the Marines, and after he got out, he decided he wanted to live where it was warm, so he went down in Arizona, and he went through police academy training, and he's been a police officer for the city of Maricopa, which is south of Phoenix, about the size of Eau Claire. And he's been doing that for about 7 years now. And one of the things that was very nice to hear, I wouldn't say gratifying, but it was really nice to hear, you know, as a police patrol officer, and he's also on their SWAT team, he said he quite often is called out to pick up juveniles that are in trouble, not home when they're supposed to be, things like that. And, you know, he says, take them back to their home, and a lot of times there's maybe only a mother there to look after them, and the mother says, well, I don't know what to do with this child anymore. They won't listen to me, they won't do this, and they're just free on their own. And he said, you know, that's really concerning. He said, well, really those formative years happened way back when they were 2, 3, 4, and 5, not necessarily when they're 12, 13, 14, and 15. So it's kind of sad, and that isn't just down there that's happening, it happens all across our country. But the reason I mention that is, he said to his mom in that phone conversation, he says, "Mom, you and Dad did a pretty good job raising us kids." And that was nice to hear. Because in today's society, everyone's so touchy about what's the right thing to do when you're raising your kids, how to take care of them, how to discipline them. I think we had a lot of good things going for us years ago, and we've kind of let the leash out too far, and we might need to pull that back in. So some of the other things I've been involved with, Hastings Creamery over here, for example. I've served on the board of directors for, I think it's been 7 years now. I was the chairman for the past 3 years of the board. I stepped out in March of this year to free up more time so that I had time to run this campaign. I was the executive chairperson for Farm Technology Days when we hosted that in 2010 here in Pierce County by River Falls. Some of you might remember Farm Technology Days. We had about 1,200 volunteers, and I'll always remember the third day. I remember the first two also, but the third day it rained that morning and didn't want to quit, and we had to pull the plug on the show. Literally, the electricity was the problem. We had water getting close to the electrical outlets, and we had to pull the plug. But a couple years after our show, over here in Pierce County, they had a vacancy on the State Board of Directors. And I was asked if I wanted to serve on that state board, and so I accepted that position. And currently I serve as vice chair on the State Board of Directors for Farm Technology Days. And our next closest show is going to be in Clare County in the year 2020, and it's going to be at Hunsinger Farm. So they'll offer kind of a different array of interest in agriculture, as they have many different facets of their operations, including the horseradish business that they do. Been on county board. I have a mistake on there because it actually wasn't quite 14 years. There was 10 years, and then there was a 2-year absence, and then another 2 years. So I need to correct that. So I just want to make that clear. But during my first 10 years, I served on the Ag Extension Committee, Land Conservation, and even finance personnel towards the end there. But on Ag Extension, I was very involved with the extension programming, to the point where I was served on the board of State Board of Directors for Extension, and also I was the state president for that board for the last 2 years I was on there. So, and then I stepped off after the 10-year period to run for state senate 4 years ago, lost in a close election. There was a vacancy on the county board after that election cycle, and I was asked if I would fill that vacancy until the next election period, which is what I did. And I was happy to do that. So a little bit more about why I'm running, some of the issues I think that are important. You know, I mentioned the story about the children earlier, and you know, there's a lot of families doing a good job raising their children, but there's families that need help. And my daughter, when she was over here at Malone, when the special ed department, she told us a couple of different times, she says, "I'd just love to put my arm around them and take that child home, because that child feels like they have no one that cares about them." Well, we need to do better for our children and our grandchildren in our country. Somehow we need to have better ways of taking care of them. We need to have the type of place, the type of world that they'll feel like they're being raised in a better manner. And those are things that I want to work on. I don't have all the answers, but I'm certainly willing to look into it. I'm certainly willing to work on it, because if we don't take care of our children, it's going to, I think our country as a whole is going to continue to deteriorate. So that's the main reason why I'm running. The other reason that motivated me to even run for the county board was my son, when he said, "I want to join the Marines," and I thought about that because about 8 members of my community asked me to run for county board back 15, 16 years ago. And I thought, my son's going to give up 4 years of his life to serve active duty in the Marines. If people think I'm good enough to run for county board, at least I could try. And if I can make it at least a term, I can serve my community in that fashion. Well, it ended up being 12 years, and I actually enjoyed working with other people, doing government business, and so that led me to the next decision, and people were encouraged me to run for state senate, and so that's why I'm running for state senate. Some of the issues I think that are important that I have an interest in working on, number one is our infrastructure, our roads, bridges, and broadband for our communities. Those are paramount that we take care of those. Sometimes we see the rough road out here from Ellsworth to Prescott on Highway 10. But that's probably not the worst of it. The worst of it is when we have bridges in more of our local communities that are deteriorated to the point where you can't cross them with a heavy load anymore. And The only alternative to a bridge that you can't use is you gotta close that road, and it makes a major inconvenience for a lot of our communities. And yes, I'd like to see Highway 10 from Prescott to Ellsworth in better shape. I travel that enough coming over to Hastings to know that I can feel every bump in the road. And I like driving on smooth roads. The broadband issue, broadband is crucial to keeping businesses in our communities, and especially in our rural communities. If we can keep businesses in our rural communities, we'll have families living in our rural communities because that's where they go to work. If we have families living in our rural communities, then we'll have schools in our rural communities. All three of them, it's a three-legged stool. We got to have all three of them working together in order to keep that going. Otherwise, we're going to end up with mega cities like the Twin Cities, Eau Claire, La Crosse, and the rest of it will be pretty sparsely populated. Speaking of population, the 31st Senate District, which Franz mentioned earlier, the city of Eau Claire is 1/3 of that Senate seat. And each Senate seat is actually 3 assembly districts. So Eau Claire itself is 1 assembly seat. This area that runs from Eau Claire over to the west to Prescott is another assembly seat. And then the third one is the area south of Eau Claire, which is basically Buffalo, Trempealeau, and part of Jackson County. So the Senate seat as a whole is all a part of 7 counties. And some people talked about there might be gerrymandering going on when they draw the lines. I mentioned to Franz, I said, you have to consider that when they do the population counts, they try to get each district the population numbers as equal as possible. And some people have their thoughts about it. I'm going to say I'm not going to go there for myself, because I know that when it comes to voting wards, they try to keep the voting wards into one voting block. They don't like to separate those out, so sometimes you'll see a job one way or another. We'll let the other powers that be that have the authority to make those decisions make those decisions. So the second issue I want to talk about is school education and safety. Education is paramount for all of our children. But I'm a believer in school choice. I think that parents should have the ability to send their, if it's a parochial school, they want to send them to a parochial school, I think they should have that ability to do that. School safety is of utmost importance. These attacks that have happened at our schools are terrible, to say the least. And I think it's the best way we can prevent that is to have safety measures put in place to not allow those people into our schools to cause the danger and harm. I'm also a proponent for welfare reform and job training, and also apprenticeships, things like that that can help our young people get into a trade job, jobs that they can earn a good living. A lot of these trade jobs are $70,000 and more a year, with not a lot of cost to education, maybe 1 or 2 years of vocational school. We need to make our young people aware that those are opportunities that are out there. And when I talk about welfare reform, what I hear from some workers and also business owners, they'll say, well, this worker can only work 2 days a month because if they work any more than that, they're going to lose their government benefits. And I understand that. I understand why a worker would be figuring out, well, I'm better off not working so much because I'm going to lose money if I work more. So to me, that's the wrong incentive. We need to change that. I talk about changing that sliding scale so that if they work another day a week, financially they need to be better off by working and lose less benefits. I mean, we can scale back the benefits slowly and allow them to make more income so that they can be financially better off. It just makes good logical sense to me, and I'm not sure why we can't get it done, but I'm going to work hard on that one. And so, and lastly, I just talked about I'm a pro-life candidate. I just think that each human being's life is worth a lot, and we need to remember that as we take actions. And I'm also pro-family. What I talked about earlier about the family structure, how important it is in our society. sometimes as a farmer, I can kind of compare that to even our farm animals and wildlife, in the sense that that mother and sometimes both parents of that young animal nurture and they care for that young pup or calf or whatever it is. They'll care for that animal and bring it up so that it can be a good member of that herd, that wolf pack, whatever it is. But they teach them how to take care of teach the young how to be a member of that family. And we have to do a better job within our human family to do a lot of those same things. If we have a family, we need to put that family ahead of our own personal interest so that that young person knows what it's like to be cared for, to be loved, and to actually know how to be a good member of our community when they get to be an adult. So with that, I'll open it for questions. How's that? So if anyone has any questions, I would certainly appreciate it. Yes?
How long are the sessions in the Senate?
The Senate typically would run with the assembly seats when everybody's in session. I really don't know. I'm guessing it takes up about half of the calendar year that they're in session. Most days that they are in session is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. So they allow a little bit of time on Mondays and Fridays travel back and forth. And then apparently weekends aren't our own. Weekends are time to go spend with constituents. So it sounds a lot like campaigning. You spend a lot of time trying to meet with people and listen to them and kind of get your message out. It's something that I would look forward to doing. I'm not sure how long, if I'll try for 12 years like I did in county court, but I look forward to the opportunity to do that. Yes?
Yeah, how do you feel about the way our funding for our schools are right now? Do you have any opinions or feelings?
I've been told, and I haven't specifically looked at the hard numbers, but I've been told that the funding is not equitable between some larger schools like Milwaukee and some of our more rural schools out here. And I would be very much in favor of trying to equalize that out more. But we have to remember that there's legislators down there, probably in the Milwaukee area, that are saying, well, we don't want to give up what advantage we have. So those are things that I think are important to try to look at. The other thing is with my daughter being a school teacher, I am well aware of teachers don't necessarily get paid very well for what we are asking them to do. And so I would be in favor of trying to get more money out to our school districts from the state. It becomes a real balancing act in the sense that I've listened to other candidates talk about, well, they want to give out this, they want to give out that, and they talk about doing free this, and they talk about doing free that. Well, you got to have the money in order to do all those things. And so when I say it's a balancing act, it's kind of like, where's your priorities? But before I got over here to Prescott today at noon, I stopped at the Veterans Office in Ellsworth. I was on that committee, said hi to the County Veteran Service Officer, and he mentioned that they're being overwhelmed with veterans coming in asking for services. And he said a lot of them are coming from St. Croix now because that office in Hudson moved to Richmond. Pepin County doesn't have one. So they're being overwhelmed by servicemen asking for help, and they're coming to the county, our county here. And they can do that. They can cross county lines. But you know, and it isn't just because my son was a service member. But you know, I think our people that serve in the military probably pay as high a price as anyone. So giving up part of their life. And I have made a special place for all servicemen and women. That would be a real high priority, that we could at least take care of them in a decent fashion. I'm not talking about extravagance and by any means, but I know that education is important, and I'd like to find some more dollars that we can get to our school districts out here, because I know that education is important for our young people too. I'll just leave it at that. Yes?
I've been getting a lot of mailings since I retired about abolishing Social Security and Medicare. And when I look at the fact that I've put into Social Security for 50 years, and I cringe when I hear them talking about a benefit, it's something we paid for and earned. And the other side of it, healthcare, I'm a retired healthcare professional, and healthcare costs, luckily I've worked all my life, I can pay for them. But I volunteer at the free clinic, and I see a lot of people who can't even afford to go to the marketplace and pay a premium. So what are your feelings about abolishing Social Security, Medicare, and then on the other side, healthcare?
Well, I'm almost there to Social Security and Medicare. But that's a federal issue. The state typically doesn't deal with that particular issue, but we need to honor our pledges, our promises to our members of our community in regards to Social Security and Medicare. Medicare, by the way, is not fully funded, and that's why they ask you as a person that's on Medicare to get a supplemental insurance policy to help cover those costs. So I think those are scare tactics that are being put out there, that somebody's interested in taking those away. I don't see that changing. As far as health insurance for other individuals in our community, I have a little different mindset than some of the others, and especially my opponent. I think that private insurance is still a valuable option for people that can get that. Years ago, probably 20-some years ago, I had some issues with my back, and I was unable to work for a period of time. And we had some changes in our medical insurance, and they have what they call the HERPS program in Wisconsin, high-risk insurance pool. And I didn't quite qualify to get into that, but that worked actually quite well for people that had pre-existing conditions and things like that. And I would like to see that come back again. I would like to get that moving, pool insurance for high-risk patients or people, because to throw everyone into a Medicaid or Medicare for all free health insurance, I don't think we have any idea how much that's going to cost us as taxpayers. I just don't think we realize what the total cost that's going to be. And that's one of the things that's being said by some others. I'd like, we may end up at that point down the road, but I'm really interested in trying to keep some of the private insurance that's in our place. I still have private insurance myself. I've been able to keep it at a reasonable rate.
But what about all those people who can't afford these private insurance rates, and the families that, if we don't keep our children healthy, if they go 6 years without any medical care, they're not going to do well in school. They're behind before they get started. And if we don't have Badger Care or MA.
And that's what Badger Care is for a lot of our young children, and I know a number of them are still, and we can keep Badger Care in place for those things. I thought when you asked the question was geared more towards adults and quite often we hear about adults with pre-existing conditions and they have a different.
When I was referring to the adults, this past year I've been overwhelmed by the signs of help me, help me, help me. And part of that is because our population is over 50 and there aren't enough workers to fill all these service jobs. But what I see is people who are working that can't afford their health care premiums in the marketplace for MA or anything, so they come to a free clinic because there is no option for them. And a lot of employers can't afford to give health insurance, so there's a big gap.
There is a gap
In the working population.
There is somewhat of a resurgence of employers starting to offer health care again, just because that's another means by which they can entice employees to come to work for them, and I think that's a positive. First and foremost, health care is each person's personal responsibility. I think I want to put that out in front of you. It's not saying that they can doctor themselves, but to do the things that take care of their bodies, in a sense. I would equate it a little bit to auto insurance. If you have auto insurance or buy auto insurance and you're a careful driver versus a reckless driver, it's a little bit like if you got your own body health. If you're a careful person about your body health versus someone that's not. And it's not to say that you couldn't end up with an issue, whether it be cancer or something else that you got to deal with. And that's what insurance should be for, is those needs that come along that are unexpected to help you get through. I'm open to the discussion about it and what we can do to work with it, but I just think that if we throw in the towel and we say Medicare or Medicaid for all, I don't think that's the right answer. Because Medicare and Medicaid, when I met with a executive from Wisconsin Hospital Association, he came right out and said, you're only funding about 65% of the cost, and the rest of it's unfunded. And it says, so what they're doing, the hospitals or clinics are overcharging their other customers the difference in order to make up that loss. And so somehow we need to get that all corrected so that everyone's being funded enough.
I agree with you, because I see that on my own supplement. And I look at my explanation of benefits, and okay, they charged $1,000, but they only recouped $250. And it's like, well, who's paying the difference? So they're trying to get as much as they can from insurance companies to offset.
Yeah, other people are paying for it, so we can do better. And I'm certainly open to suggestions on how we can make it better. So, yes.
I was involved with some local politics for a while, and we had a chance to visit our representatives down in Madison, and we'd actually lobby for the League of Municipalities. And when we visited them down there was a real vitriol between the parties. There was nobody was happy down there. The Republicans hated the Democrats and vice versa. I guess you talk about there being a balance. If you were to see things that were needed in your district, if you were elected and you came out of a caucus, whether it be Mr. Roth or Mr. Fitzgerald or whoever is heading that up, and they wanted you to toe the line, the party line, what I noticed is that there wasn't any crossing over down there. There'd be issues that you know that the representatives wanted this for the district, and yet they weren't willing to work and go across party lines to join with the other party to get what was best. What would your response be on that if you were to come out of a caucus with direction to toe the line, and yet you knew that it would be of benefit to you to work across party lines to do things? I think it's at the local level. It's all the way through our federal level where we don't do that anymore. What's your response to that?
Well, I thank you for asking that question, because I've had others ask me that same type of question. And this is how I've responded in short. You know, you get assigned an office down at the Capitol based on kind of your support of the particular partisan party that you're with. And I've told people, I says, if my office ended up in the basement of the Capitol because they're PO'd at me, so be it. When I was on county board, we had some issues going on between some of us as supervisors. And, you know, there were some tough days there. And some people were upset with me because of positions I took. I believed that was in the best interest of the county, and I stood by my decisions. But you know, when I left the county board, actually when I came back on to fill out that unfilled term, the county board chairman tagged me and he says, would you be willing to do that? And I said, yeah, I'd be willing to fill out the term. All the other county board supervisors, all 16 of them, could vote up or down to let me back on the board. They all voted affirmative to have me come back on the board. And when I left the board this last spring, I can honestly say I got along with everyone that was there, even though we had differences of opinion. What I boil it down to is respect. Respect for other people. We can disagree, and I know the partisan politics has gotten quite bad. You do what you can. I've been doing doors, quite a few in Eau Claire, for example, and every so often I encounter someone that is really in a rage. And this one person went off. I just told him who I was. I'm running as Republican, and he went off for President Trump. And doesn't matter what your opinion is of President Trump, but he went off on President Trump and this, and this. And I said to him, I said, you know, I find it so interesting how two people can have such different viewpoints on an issue like that. And then he went off some more, and I just finally says, you know, I says, I have to keep moving, have a good day. If someone's not willing to listen to you, there's not much you can do about the situation. But at least let's be civil to each other, let's respect each other. I think that's a starting point on how we can make our country and our state better. And I'm not afraid to stand up. I got, the people I represent are the most important people around. I don't owe anything to anyone down in Madison. I don't owe anything to anyone that's in leadership down there. If I win this campaign, it's because I've earned it and the volunteers that helped me make it in. So I'll just leave it.
Now, I know Franz is gonna shut me up here, but you're gonna come out of those caucuses and your values are with family, with education, with infrastructure. You're gonna come out of that where there's a tightness from the Republicans on what they want to spend.
Yep.
And there's not gonna be money available for that. And it's gonna take some spine on the individual's part. And crossing party lines is a bipartisan decision. You're gonna put your political future at risk if you do that in today's environment.
You know what? I'm gonna take it, if I'm lucky enough to get elected or fortunate, whatever word you wanna use, I'm gonna take it as a 4-year term. I'm not running for the next election cycle.
Good luck on that office.
I'm not. I can honestly say I don't know if there'll be another election cycle for me or not. But I'm just saying, I'm running for this time period, and this is the plan, where I plan to serve. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, I don't think there's time for another question, but I think the ending was very appropriate here. And we want to thank you very much for coming.